Bhishma spoke his words wove a tapestry of wonder and awe. He described how these wise men had transcended the limitations of the world, attaining eternal success. Even in this life, their hearts, set upon emancipation, shone like beacons guiding them along the path of Yuga, free from the faults of the world. They lived in a state of perfect tranquility, their souls unencumbered by the influence of opposing forces. In such a state, the Yujin sat like a piece of wood, his senses crushed, and his mind undividedly united with the Supreme Soul. Through the aid of meditation, his perception of the world was transformed. He no longer saw or heard or touched or tasted. His senses, once bound by their attachments to worldly objects, were now free to soar on the wings of meditation. Bhishma's words painted a picture of a being who had abandoned all things, wrapped in contemplation, possessed of great energy of mind. He had no desire for anything that excited the five senses. The wise man withdrew his senses into his mind, fixing them with the intellect. Like a sailor anchoring his ship in calm waters, Bhishma continued to speak. His words took on a sense of urgency and encouragement. He knew that the path of Yuga was not an easy one, but he also knew that it was the only way to attain true freedom. The Yujin's mind, like a drop of water on a lotus leaf, was unstable and moved about in all directions. But with patience and perseverance it could be fixed on the path of meditation. Bhishma described how the Yujin should observe the vow of silence, casting aside idleness and malice. As he directed his mind to meditation, though feeling annoyed by the flightiness of his mind, he should never despair, but seek his own good. Like a heap of dust or ashes that requires incessant drenching before it becomes thoroughly soaked, the Yujin must gradually control all his senses. And so Arjuna listened with rapt attention as Bhishma revealed the secrets of Yuga meditation. He saw in his mind's eye the felicity that came to those who had succeeded in controlling their minds and senses, a joy that could never be obtained through exertion or destiny alone. United with such felicity, they continued to take pleasure in the act of meditation until finally they attained nirvana, that highly blessed state beyond all worldly attachments.
In the midst of their conversation, Yudhishthira approached Bhishma with a question. "I have listened attentively to your teachings on the four modes of life and their duties," he said. "You have also shared with me the responsibilities of kings and recited numerous stories from various realms. I have heard many discourses on morality, but one doubt remains unresolved. It is my desire to understand the fruits that silent reciters of sacred mantras acquire through their practice of Vishnu sensing." Yudhishthira's curiosity smiled knowingly in this regard. He began, "I shall recount an ancient tale from the annals of time. It is said that a wise Brahmana once conversed with Yama, the embodiment of time itself. This sage was well versed in the paths to emancipation, and he spoke of two distinct methods, Sankhya and Yoga. Sankhya path, Bhishma continued, is also known as Vedanta. It preaches renunciation, particularly in regards to silent recitation. The Vedas themselves declare abstention from worldly concerns, advocating for a tranquil existence centered on Brahman. However, both the Sankhya and Yoga paths involve the subjugation of one's senses and the fixation of the mind after withdrawing from external objects. Furthermore, Bhishma explained truth-keeping, maintaining the sacred fire, solitude, meditation, penance, self-restraint, forgiveness, benevolence, abstemiousness in food, detachment from worldly attachments, silence, and tranquility are all essential for a silent reciter. These actions lead to a sacrifice of acts, resulting in the fulfillment of desires for heavenly bliss or felicity in the next life. However, Bhishma said, there is another path, that of abstention from acts. A person who observes the vow of Brahmacharya and follows this path should conduct themselves according to what has been previously stated. By renouncing dependence on both the external and internal worlds, he should surround himself with cues, grass, bind his locks with it, and assume equability by focusing his mind. This individual, Bhishma continued to recite the Gayatri mantra, a composition of great benefit, and meditate on Brahma alone. As he becomes absorbed in concentrated contemplation, his dependence on the strength of the Gayatri will cease. Through penance and self-restraint, he attains purity of soul, freedom from attachment and delusion, and transcendence above all pairs of opposites. In this state, Bhishma said, He does not regard himself as the actor or enjoyer-sufferer of consequences. He is no longer consumed by selfishness, nor does he fix his mind on worldly objects. His work becomes meditation itself, and through it he achieves concentrated contemplation. Eventually, he leaves off meditation and enters.
As the sun set over the tranquil landscape, Yudhishthira, the wise and just king, approached Bhishma, the venerable sage, with a question burning in his heart. "Tell me, O revered Bhishma," he said, "about the end that awaits those who recite the sacred texts with devotion. Do they attain only this highest state, or is there another destination to which they are bound?" Bhishma's eyes sparkled with wisdom as he began to speak, his voice low and soothing. "Listen carefully, O mighty monarch," he said, "for I shall reveal to you the fate that awaits those who follow the path of silent recitation. There is indeed a higher end, but it is not reserved for all who attempt this discipline. Those who do not first purify themselves through adherence to the prescribed method and fail to complete their course of study are doomed to suffer in the hells." Yudhishthira's face reflected his concern as he listened intently to Bhishma's words. "What of those who recite without faith or with pride in their hearts?" he asked. Bhishma's expression turned grave. "They too shall suffer, for they are blinded by their own arrogance and fail to see the true nature of reality." As the conversation continued, Bhishma revealed that there were many pitfalls on the path of silent recitation. Those who sought to attain spiritual growth through external means, such as attachment to material wealth or earthly desires, would only find themselves entangled in their own attachments. The reciter whose heart is set upon the attributes of divinity shall incur hell and never be free, Bhishma declared. Yudhishthira's eyes widened with understanding as he grasped the subtleties of Bhishma's teachings. He asked, "But what of those who attain the state of Brahma through recitation? Why do they still have to take birth in embodied forms?" Bhishma's expression turned somber. "It is because they lack true knowledge and wisdom that reciters fall prey to the diverse descriptions of hell." The sage paused, collecting his thoughts before continuing. "The discipline followed by reciters is indeed superior, but it is not immune to fault. These are the pitfalls that I have spoken of, the consequences of attachment, pride, and ignorance. It is a path fraught with danger, yet also full of promise for those who tread it with sincerity and devotion." As the stars began to twinkle in the evening sky, Yudhishthira thanked Bhishma for his wisdom. His heart filled with a deeper understanding of the complexities of spiritual growth. He knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he also saw the potential for transformation and liberation that lay within the path of silent recitation. The sun had just begun to set on the kingdom, casting a warm orange glow over the bustling streets. Yudhishthira, the righteous king, sat in contemplative silence, his eyes fixed on Bhishma, the venerable patriarch of the royal family. The air was heavy with anticipation as Yudhishthira asked Bhishma to describe the hells that awaited those who recited the sacred scriptures. Bhishma's eyes sparkled with a deep understanding as he began to speak. "Noble prince," he said, his voice low and soothing, "you have sprung from the very essence of righteousness. Your nature is attuned to the divine, and you are blessed with an unwavering commitment to virtue. Listen closely, for I shall reveal to you the secrets of the hells." As Bhishma spoke, his words wove a tapestry of vivid imagery, transporting Yudhishthira to realms beyond the mortal world. In those regions, he said, the gods themselves dwell in all their glory. The skies are ablaze with colors that dance and shimmer like the golden lotuses that bloom in the pleasure gardens. But my prince, these wondrous places are but mere hells compared to the supreme region where the very essence of existence resides. Bhishma's description painted a picture of a realm untouched by fear, pain, or suffering. There is no birth, no death, no joy, nor sorrow, he said, his voice filled with awe. Time itself is boundless and formless, a mere instrument at the command of the Supreme Soul. The reciter who attains this state shall never again know sorrow, for they have transcended the cycles of existence. As Bhishma spoke, Yudhishthira's eyes grew wider with wonder, his heart burning with an insatiable desire to reach that supreme state. He listened intently as Bhishma revealed the secrets of the other hells, each one a shadowy reflection of the supreme region. "But my king," Bhishma said, "finally I have not told you all there is to know about these hells. Indeed, in comparison to the supreme region, all else is but darkness and despair. Yet even in those realms there lies a glimmer of hope, for it is through the recitation of the sacred scriptures that one may yet attained the ultimate goal as Bhishma finished speaking. Yudhishthira sat in contemplative silence, his mind reeling with the weight of what he had heard. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting the kingdom in a soft twilight glow. But for Yudhishthira, the darkness was far from absolute, for he knew that the path to enlightenment lay before him, illuminated by the radiant words of Bhishma.
In the midst of a discussion about morality and righteousness, Yudhishthira asked Bhishma to recount an ancient story that had been mentioned earlier. Bhishma obliged, telling the tale of a renowned Brahmana who resided at the foot of the Himalayas. This wise and pious reciter spent 1,000 years practicing severe austerities, reciting the sacred Gayatri mantra with utmost devotion. The goddess Savitri, pleased with his dedication, appeared before him and expressed her gratitude. She asked the Brahmana what he desired as a reward for his tireless efforts, and he humbly requested that his heart remain filled with joy in the act of recitation. Savitri granted his wish and also prophesied that time, death, Yama and Dharma would soon arrive to engage him in a dispute about morality. The Brahmana continued his recitations for another 1,000 celestial years, maintaining his self-control and devotion to truth as predicted. Dharma appeared before the Brahmana, announcing that he had won the reward of his recitation, ascending to the highest regions of felicity, free from passion and misery. However, the Brahmana declined the offer, expressing his attachment to his physical body, and the act of reciting the mantra Dharma urged him to cast off his mortal coil and ascend to heaven. But the Brahmana refused, preferring to continue his devotional practice with his body intact. Dharma then revealed that time, Mrityu and Yiva were approaching, intent on bearing him away. As the trio arrived, they praised the Brahmana's righteous conduct and offered words of encouragement. The Brahmana in turn welcomed them warmly and asked how he could serve them. Just then King Aishvek, a sage monarch, arrived at the Seine, having set out to visit holy waters, and Shrinasashvik bowed his head in reverence and inquired after their welfare. The Brahmana offered him a seat and water for washing his feet, as well as the usual Arjaya offerings. Aishvek then asked how he could repay their kindness, suggesting that he offered gifts to them. However, the Brahmana declined, explaining that he had abstained from accepting material reward. She proposed instead that Aishvik provide gifts to those who worked and accepted such offerings. While the Brahmana would focus on his own devotional practices, the king of Kshatriya by birth replied that as warriors they knew how to ask for battle, but not how to request gifts. The Brahmana smiled, understanding their nature, and the conversation came to an end. Thus Bhishma concluded the story of the Brahmana's encounter with Dharma, time, Mrityu, Yama, and King Aishviku, highlighting the themes of devotion, self-control, and the pursuit of righteousness.
In a sacred grove, Yudhishthira, the wise king, sought the counsel of his grandfather Bhishma. The king's curiosity was piqued by the tale of Virupa, a devoted reciter who had been granted a rare boon by the goddess Savitri. Bhishma began to recount the story of Virupa and another Brahmana who had gathered in the same sacred grove as Bhishma spoke. He described how the Brahmana, after listening to Virupa's words, worshipped the gods of Dharma, time, Mrityu, heaven, and all the revered Brahmanas present. He then turned to the monarch who had been granted a share in the rewards of his recitations and said, "If your success has come to naught due to sharing it with me, I shall practice again." The Brahmana replied, "You have made strenuous efforts. For me, let us be equal in our rewards, and we shall depart together. The assembly of gods, including the Sadhyas, Viswas mantras, and the divine Saraswati, Narada, Parvata, and Viswavasa descended upon the sacred grove. The sound of drums and trumpets filled the air as celestial flowers rained down upon the gathering. The Apsaras danced in joy, and heaven itself appeared in its embodied form. The Brahmana and the monarch, having done good deeds for each other, withdrew their senses from worldly attachments. They concentrated their vital breaths and united them within themselves. As they sat in perfect stillness, a fiery flame of great splendor ascended to heaven, piercing the crown of the high-souled Brahma. Brahman himself appeared before the assembly, welcoming the departed souls with open arms. He declared that reciters and yujins attain the same end, and that the honor is reserved for them to be received by Brahman after their departure from earth. The monarch, Aishvekyu, and the Brahmana Then entered the mouth of the Creator, freed from all anxieties. The assembled deities saluted the self-born Brahmats, saying a superior end is ordained for reciters. This exertion we have witnessed is for them. They acknowledge that both Eugens and reciters can transcend all regions of felicity and go wherever they wish. With these words, Brahma vanished, leaving behind a profound lesson on the rewards of devotion to recitation. Bhishma concluded his tale, saying, I have described their end as I myself had heard it. What else, O monarch, dost thou wish to hear? The king's curiosity was satiated, but the story would live on in the annals of sacred lore, inspiring generations to come. In the midst of a tranquil forest, Yudhishthira, the wise and just king, approached his revered grandsire, Bhishma, with a burning question. What is the true nature of yoga? He asked. What are the fruits of knowledge and the various observances and vows? How can we truly know ourselves? Bhishma's eyes sparkled as he began to recount an ancient tale from the days of man, the first of all creatures, and his wise teacher Vrihaspati. In a forest glade, Vrihaspati bowed before his preceptor and asked, what is the cause of the universe? What are the ordinances about sacrifices and other peace observances that flow from it? Man smiled, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. My dear Vrihaspati, he said, the source of all things is beyond our comprehension, but I shall try to explain. The ordinances about acts have flowed for one purpose, to free us from the cycle of desire and attachment. Vrihaspati listened intently as Manu continued. The Vedas speak of 5 acts that bring fruit. Mantras applied. Daily sacrifices, dakshina, gifts of food, and concentration of the mind. These acts have 3 attributes, sattva, rajas, and tamas, but it is not the acts themselves that bring fruit. It is our understanding and intention behind them. As man spoke, his words wove a tapestry of wisdom, revealing the intricate dance between knowledge and action. The embodied creature enjoys the fruits of its actions. He said, whatever acts are accomplished by means of the body, one enjoys the fruits. There is in a state of physical existence. But whatever acts are accomplished by means of words or the mind, their fruits are enjoyed in a state beyond physical existence. Bhishma's eyes shone with understanding as he listened to Manu's words. And what of the ultimate reality? Yudhishthira asked. Bhishma smiled, his voice taking on a gentle, reverent tone. That which is beyond comprehension, beyond words and mantras, is the Supreme Being. He is the source of all things, unmanifest, without color or form. He created the 5 kinds of objects for his creatures, but he himself remains beyond them as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the forest. Yudhishthira and Bhishma sat in silence, their minds still resonating with the wisdom of man's words, and in that moment they knew that true understanding was not something to be grasped, but rather to be experienced like the gentle touch of a summer breeze on the skin. In the beginning, man revealed the secrets of creation to the world. He said that from the eternal and unchanging one space emerged. First from space wind was born, followed by light, water, and finally the universe unfolded. As the universe took shape, all living beings came into existence. Manu explained that after a being's physical body dissolves at death, it returns to its original elements, water, light, or heat, wind, and space. But those who seek liberation from the cycle of birth and death do not return to these realms. Instead, they attain union with Brahma, the Supreme Soul. Brahma is beyond human comprehension. Neither hot, nor cold, mild, nor fire, sweet, nor bitter. He has no form, sound, or scent. He transcends all dimensions and exists independently of the senses and the mind. To behold him, one must withdraw from the distractions of the world, quieting the mind and senses. Manu revealed that the self or soul is the ultimate cause behind all actions, thoughts, and desires. It pervades everything, doing everything through its various forms. The soul is the highest of all beings, one without a second, and it accomplishes all things. Everything else in the universe is an effect of its presence. As man continued to explain the mysteries of existence, he revealed that the results of one's actions, both good and evil, reside within their own body, just like knowledge resides within them. The 5 senses are like lamps that discover objects when lit by the light of knowledge. Just as a king's ministers provide counsel, the senses work together under the guidance of knowledge. And you also spoke about the impermanence of the physical body and its cycles of birth, growth, decay, and destruction. The soul, however, remains unchanged, passing from one body to another, unseen by others. It cannot be perceived with the eyes or touched by the senses.
Yet through the practice of yoga, a person can unite their senses and soul, allowing them to behold the Supreme Soul in its true nature as man who concluded his teachings. He emphasized that the embodied creature returns to the five primal elements: space, wind, fire, water, and earth. After dissolving its physical body, the senses also merge into these elements, each one returning to its respective realm. But with the guidance of the Supreme Soul, a person can transcend this cycle and attain liberation. In the end, man's words reveal that the ultimate reality is beyond human comprehension. Yet it can be experienced through the practice of yoga and the quieting of the mind. The Supreme Soul exists independently of the world, guiding all beings towards their ultimate destiny, union with itself.
In the stillness of the mind, when the senses are suspended and the distractions of the world have subsided, the Supreme Soul reveals itself in its true nature. It is as if the mind, now freed from the burdens of the material world, can recall with perfect clarity all the impressions it has received in the past. As the mind gathers these impressions like a great tapestry being woven together, it beholds the vast and intricate web of existence. The Supreme Soul in this state is not concerned with the fleeting nature of things, nor does it regard them as separate or distinct from one another. Instead, it sees all things as interconnected, as part of an eternal and unchaining whole. This is the realm of the witness, where the individual self, Jiva, beholds the world in its true light. It is a state beyond the reach of the senses, yet one that can be glimpsed by those who have cultivated wisdom and understanding through the teachings of the wise. As Supreme Soul is not bound by the limitations of space or time, nor is it subject to the fluctuations of pleasure and pain. It is omniscient, all-knowing, and sees all things with perfect clarity. Yet like the wind that enters a flame, the Supreme Soul cannot be perceived by the senses, nor can it be seen by the eyes. But though the Supreme Soul may not be directly apprehended, its presence can be felt through the effects it has on the world. Just as one knows that the moon is still there even when it is hidden from view, so too does the Supreme Soul dwell within all beings, guiding and directing them towards their ultimate goal of union with Brahman. The wise ones have a special insight into this realm, which they have gained through intense contemplation and devotion. They see beyond the veil of the material world to the timeless and spaceless reality that underlies all existence. And though the Supreme Soul may seem elusive like Ra, the shadowy planet that appears only when it is in conjunction with the sun or moon, its presence can be felt through the transformative power it has on those who seek to know it. In the state of union, the individual self and the Supreme Soul are one. The distinctions between subject and object, between self and other, dissolved, and all that remains is the pure awareness of the ultimate reality. This is the goal towards which all seekers strive, and it is the destination of those who have dedicated their lives to the pursuit of knowledge and devotion. Just as the moon, though it may disappear from view, continues to shine in its own light, so too does the Supreme Soul remain unchanged throughout all the cycles of birth, growth, and decay. It is the unchanging reality that underlies all existence, and it is this reality that we seek to know and understand through our quest for wisdom and self-realization. In the depths of meditation, man revealed a profound truth about the nature of existence and non-existence. He described how our physical bodies lie dormant, much like a dream, while our subtle essence, the enlivening spirit, detaches itself from the former and walks forth into the realm of deep slumber or death. As man continued to share his wisdom, he explained that even in this state of dormancy, our senses remain inactive and our understanding remains awake. He compared it to a still pond where images can be reflected clearly for those who observe without disturbance. In like manner, if our senses are unperturbed, we can behold the soul, which is capable of being viewed by the understanding. However, man cautioned that ignorance often leads to delusion, and when the mind becomes tainted with it, the five senses, which rely on the mind for guidance, become vitiated as well. Surcharged with ignorance, one becomes mired in worldly attachments, unable to experience contentment or tranquility. The soul still tied to its good and evil deeds repeatedly returns to the objects of the world, perpetuating a cycle of suffering. But man who offered hope for liberation from this cycle, he explained that when our sinful deeds are destroyed, knowledge arises within us. As we behold our own reflection in the polished mirror of understanding, we gain insight into our true nature and can begin to transcend our attachment to worldly objects. The wise sage continued, one obtains misery in consequence of one's senses being unrestrained, while happiness arises from their restraint. He emphasized that by self-effort we must learn to restrain our minds from the allurements of sense objects. Above the senses lies the mind, above the mind is the understanding, and above the understanding is the soul, with the supreme or great lying beyond men. Then revealed the cosmic order in which creation unfolded. From the unmanifest arose the soul, from the soul emerged the understanding, and from the understanding sprang the mind. When the mind becomes associated with the senses, it apprehends the objects of perception. However, when one casts off these attachments and liberates oneself from all things born of primordial matter, they attain immortality. As the sage concluded his discourse, he likened the soul's journey to that of the sun. Just as the sun diffuses its rays upon rising, but withdraws them at sunset, so too does the soul radiate its essence through the senses and then retreat into itself. And when we repeatedly follow the path created by our deeds, we reap the consequences of our actions. The wise man's words echoed in the minds of his listeners. Desire for the objects of the senses keeps one away from true freedom, but behold your soul, which is free from desire. When the understanding becomes detached from worldly attachments and fixed within the mind, one succeeds in attaining to Brahma, a state beyond the reach of sense perception. In the midst of life's turmoil, man who offered words of wisdom on navigating the complexities of sorrow and happiness. He cautioned that when physical or mental pain arises, it's essential not to dwell on it, for such brooding can amplify suffering. As he spoke, a sense of urgency filled the air. Don't let sorrow consume you, man, you urged. Instead, find solace in wisdom, for it is wisdom that teaches us to transcend our transitory desires. Youth, beauty, wealth, health, and the fleeting connections with loved ones. Men's words echoed through the ages, reminding his listeners of the impermanence of all things. He warned against grieving alone for a collective sorrow, instead encouraging them to seek remedies and solutions. When opportunities arise in this world, where worldly possessions often bring more pain than joy, man counseled his followers to cultivate detachment. Do not regard their loss, he said, for they are earned with misery. By letting go of attachment, one can find peace. But what lies beyond the realm of worldly attachments? Man spoke of pure knowledge, or Brahma, which is often misunderstood as a physical entity. He explained that it's our understanding, freed from attributes and actions, that can grasp the unmanifest Brahma itself. To attain this state, one must first cleanse their soul through penances, inferences, self-restraint practices, and observances. By freeing themselves from attributes, individuals with clear vision can seek the supreme within themselves, or even perceive it in external forms. As Manu's words came to a close, his listeners were left with a profound understanding of the human condition. They realized that their understanding, like fire among fuel, rushes towards attributes and moves among them. But when freed from these attachments, it can attain to emancipation, a state where one is no longer bound by the cycles of birth and death. In this timeless wisdom, Manu offered a glimpse into the nature of existence. The original creation of all beings flowed from the Supreme, while their second creation arose from the action of couples or pairs. Through righteousness, living creatures can attain a high end, while sinfulness leads to a low one, and in the end it is only through emancipation from attachments that one can attain knowledge. Brahma itself, as man's teachings faded into the background, his listeners were left with a sense of awe and wonder at the mysteries of existence. They knew that they had been given a precious gift, the keys to understanding the intricate web of life and the path to ultimate liberation. In the sacred teachings of Manu, it was said that when the five senses and the mind are united with the fivefold attributes, one can behold Brahma like a thread passing through a precious gem. Just as a thread can reside within various objects, such as gold or pearl, so too can the soul inhabit different forms, those of an animal, human, or even a lowly worm. Manu explained that the good deeds performed in a particular body yield rewards that are enjoyed in that very same body. He drew an analogy to illustrate this concept, just as a soil may appear drenched with one type of liquid, but supplies a different kind of juice to each plant that grows upon it, so too does the understanding follow the path marked out by the actions of previous livest. The sequence of cause and effect was laid bare. From knowledge springs desire, from desire springs resolution, from resolution flows action, and from action come fruits, both good and bad. These fruits are dependent on actions as their cause, which in turn have the understanding for their cause, and that understanding has knowledge for its cause, which ultimately stems from the soul and revealed the ultimate goal of spiritual seekers to attain knowledge of Brahm, a state achieved through the destruction of knowledge, fruit, understanding, and acts. This self-existent essence is beheld by yogins who have transcended worldly attachments and possess wisdom in this realm beyond attributes. Vishnu, the divine ruler of the universe, reigns supreme. His timelessness and unchangeability render him beyond sorrow, which has limits, as the supreme Brahma. He is the refuge and object of the highest, and those who know him are freed from everything bound by time and caution that attributes such as wealth, knowledge, and power can distract us from our true goal to attain emancipation or deathlessness. He emphasized that abstention from acts is the highest religion, leading one to Brahma, which cannot be acquired through effort or material means. The scriptures, rich yet uses and summons, though revered, are subject to destruction, and have a beginning and end. In contrast, Brahma, the infinite and unchangeable, transcends all sorrow and pairs of opposites. When you acknowledge that many mortals fail to behold the path to Brahma due to attachment to worldly possessions, coveting otherworldly joys, or being distracted by attributes inferior to those possessed by Brahma, yet through inference and subtle intelligence one can arrive at a knowledge of him who transcends all attributes and form. The mind, like the eye, is seizable by itself. By knowledge, the understanding can be purified of its dross. By controlling the senses with the mind, one may attain to the unchangeable Brahma, which is without desire and above all attributes. As the wind keeps away from a fire embedded in one, so too do those agitated by worldly desires keep away.
In the midst of a tranquil forest, Yudhishthira, the wise and just king, sat in deep contemplation beside his venerable grandfather Bhishma. The young monarch's eyes sparkled with curiosity as he asked Bhishma to recount the tale of Vishnu, the all-pervading lord of the universe. Of Bhishma, with a gentle smile, began to weave a majestic narrative that would transport Yudhishthira to the very dawn of creation. I have heard this story from the celestial Rishi Narada and from Krishna Dvipena. Bhishma said, his voice filled with reverence. The great sages Asiddhava, Valmiki, and Markandeya all speak of Govinda as the supreme being, the most wonderful. As Bhishma spoke, the air seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy. He described Vishnu as the origin of all creatures, the one who had created the 5 elements: wind, light, water, space, and earth. The Lord's power was such that he could lay himself down on the surface of the waters and create consciousness. The firstborn of beings in the universe. As Bhishma continued to narrate, a radiant lotus began to bloom from the navel of Vishnu, floating upon the waters. From this sacred flower emerged Brahman, the grandsire of all creatures, shining with an effulgence that illuminated the horizon. But amidst this divine birth, darkness itself took on a form. Madhu, the fierce Asura, who dared to challenge the supreme being Vishnu in his infinite compassion, slew Madhu and saved Brahman from harm. The gods, Danavas, and men all hailed Vishnu as Madhusudana, the slayer of Madhu. Bhishma's voice grew more animated as he spoke of Vishnu creating the 7 sages. Marakaya, Triangeras, Pulastia, Pulahak, Krayatu, and Decha. Narrative unfolded like a tapestry, with each thread intricately woven into the grand design. Vishnu created the Adityas, the foremost gods among them, taking birth as a dwarf in the form of Govinda. The Danavas were vanquished, and their offspring, the Asuras, emerged to challenge the gods. As Bhishma's tale reached its climax, Yudhishthira listened with rapt attention. He heard of Vishnu creating the day and night, the seasons, and the morn and evening. The Lord brought forth the clouds immobile and mobile objects, and all living beings upon the earth with each new creation. Vishnu's voice grew stronger, as if echoing the divine energy that coursed through the universal narrative. Then turned to the four orders of men: Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaisyas. In the sacred halls of ancient wisdom, Yudhishthira, the wise king of the Bharata, sought the counsel of Vishnu, a sage of unparalleled knowledge, with reverence and curiosity. Yudhishthira asked about the first Prajapatis, those divine beings who had shaped the universe with their creative power. Vishnu's eyes sparkled as he began to recount the ancient tale. In the beginning there was only one eternal, divine, and self-born Brahman. Vishnu said, his voice filled with awe. This supreme being begat 7 illustrious sons, each a Prajapati in their own right: Marichi, Atri, Anurus, Pulastya, Pulahapkretu, and the revered Vasishta, who was equal to the self-born himself. As Bhishma spoke his words, but tapestry of myth and legend, he told of Varhi, the ancient, born from Atri's lineage, who had performed penances for 1,000 celestial yugas. From Varhi sprang the 10 Prakshitesas, and among them was Daksha, also known as Kasyapa, whose name echoed through eternity. Bhishma continued his tale, speaking of Soma, the handsome prince born to Atri, who had performed penances for 1,000 celestial yugas. The divine Aryaman and their offspring were said to be the setters of commands and creators of all creatures. Sasivindu, with 10,000 wives, begat an astonishing number of sons, each claiming the title of Prajapati. Ancient Brahmanas bestowed upon Sasivindu's descendants a name that would become synonymous with the Vrishni race. These illustrious Prajapatis were said to have dwelled on various points of the compass: Marichi in the north, Atri in the east, and Vasishta in the west. As Vishnu's narrative unfolded, he spoke of the Adityas, 12 deities, born from Kasyapa, each with their own distinct characteristics. Among them were Bhaga, Ansa, Aryaman, Mitra, Varna, Savitri, Atri, Aswatashtra, Pushan, Indra, and Vishnu, known as the 12th Aditya. Yaswins, Nasaya, and Desra were mentioned as the sons of Martana, while Ashtri's numerous sons included Visvarupa, Ajaka, Pathara, Vahirupa, Triambika, Savitriya, Janta, Panakai, and Reva. These deities, along with the Vasas, 8 in number, were said to have been reckoned as gods at the time of Prajapati. Bhishma concluded his tale by mentioning the Siddhas and Satyas. In the midst of a grand assembly, Yudhishthira, the wise and noble king, turned to his venerable grandfather Bhishma with an ardent desire. "Tell me, O grandsire," he implored, "about Krishna, that omnipotent and immutable one. I wish to hear in detail about his great energy and the feats achieved by him in days of yore." Vishnu's eyes sparkled as he began to recount a tale from ancient times, when he himself had witnessed the remarkable, even as he sat in the hermitage of Markandeya, surrounded by thousands of ascetics. Vishnu recalled the words of the great Rishi Kasyapa. "Listen closely," he said, "as I narrate this wondrous account. In those distant days, the Danavas, fueled by wrath and cupidity, had grown jealous of the gods' prosperity. The mighty Asuras, numbering in hundreds and countless other Danavas, joined forces to overwhelm the celestial realm. The gods and rishis fled in terror as the earth itself seemed to sink into despair. Aditya, struck with fear, approached Brahman, seeking guidance. "How shall we endure these oppressions of the Danavas?" they asked. Brahman replied, "I have ordained what is to be done. Vishnu, the supreme deity, has assumed the form of a boar and will vanquish our enemies." As Vishnu spoke, his words conjured vivid images in Yudhishthira's mind. The scene unfolded like a drama. Vishnu, encased in the form of a mighty boar, charged into the nether regions, ready to face the Danavas. Thousands of deities, united and fueled by time, rushed against him, but their strength was no match for the boar's invincible might. The battle raged on, with the Danavas attempting to drag the boar from every side. However, they failed to make any impact, and their wonder turned to fear as they realized their last hour had come. The supreme god, having entered a state of yuga, began to utter tremendous roars that shook the very foundations of the universe. The gods, including Indra, trembled with terror as the sound reverberated through all 10 points of the compass. The world itself seemed to freeze in awe, and all mobile and immobile beings became paralyzed by the energy of Vishnu. The Danavas fell lifeless, their bodies torn apart by the boar's mighty hoofs. As Bhishma finished his tale, Yudhishthira felt a sense of reverence wash over him. He realized that the supreme god Krishna was none other than the creator of all beings, the soul of all creatures, and the master of yuga. The assembly of gods still reeling from the boars. The sun had just begun to set on the kingdom of Hastinapura, casting a warm orange glow over the bustling streets. Yudhishthira the eldest of the Pandava brothers, sat in deep contemplation with his wise mentor Bhishma. By his side the prince's eyes shone with an unquenchable thirst for knowledge, as he asked Bhishma to reveal to him the secrets of ultimate liberation. Bhishma, with a gentle smile, began to weave a tale that would take Yudhishthira on a journey through the ages. He spoke of a great Rishi, a sage of immense wisdom and power, who had imparted his knowledge to his devoted disciple. The Rishi's words were like a river flowing from the depths of the Himalayas, carrying with it the secrets of the universe. A disciple, eager to grasp the mysteries of existence, asked his guru, "Where do I come from, and where do you come from? What is the ultimate truth that governs our lives?" The Rishi's response was like a gentle breeze on a summer day, soothing and calming. He spoke of Vasudeva, the Supreme Being who was the origin of all things, the creator and destroyer of the universe. As Bhishma continued his tale, Yudhishthira's eyes grew wide with wonder. The Rishi described how Vasudeva, also known as Narayana, had taken birth in the Vrishni clan, and how he was the wheel of time without beginning or end. He is the indestructible and manifest immortal Brahma, and immutable. The Rishi declared. Bhishma's words painted a vivid picture of the universe unfolding like a lotus flower with Vasudeva at its center. The Rishi explained how the 8 primordial elements, earth, water, fire, air, their mind, intelligence, and ego, gave rise to the 5 senses, the 5 organs of action, and the 16th element, the mind. As Yudhishthira listened, he began to see the intricate web of relationships between all living beings. The Rishi's words revealed how every creature, from the smallest insect to the mightiest mountain, was connected to Vasudeva, who dwelled within them as their very essence. Bhishma's tale came full circle as he spoke of the 9 doors of existence, the 5 senses, the 5 organs of action, and the mind. These existences, he said, rest upon the supreme divinity that is above Prakriti, and that is without any inclination for action. And so Yudhishthira's thirst for knowledge was quenched, replaced by a profound understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Bhishma finished his tale, leaving Yud in the presence of the venerable Bhishma, a wise and revered sage. The disciple sought clarification on the mysteries of existence. Bhishma began to explain that all beings, immobile and mobile alike, are born from an unmanifest source and return to it in death. This unmanifest essence is the soul, which possesses attributes that are not yet apparent. As he spoke, Bhishma used a striking analogy to illustrate this concept. He compared the soul to a vast tree that lies dormant within a small swatha flower, waiting for the right moment to burst forth into full bloom. Similarly, birth and rebirth occur when the unmanifest energies of the soul are stirred by inclinations and propensities born from natural instincts. The disciple's eyes widened as Bhishma continued to describe how these inclinations and possessions, like pieces of iron drawn towards a magnet, move towards the soul in a new life. Just as they are united with the soul when reborn, so too do the other propensities and aspirations that have their gaze directed towards Brahma come into being and unite with it. Bhishma's words painted a vivid picture of the interconnectedness of all existence. He explained that neither the earth, nor sky, nor heaven, nor things, nor vital breaths, nor virtues or vices existed before the Chit soul, which is the sole source of all creation. The soul itself is eternal and indestructible, existing in every creature as its cause. As Bhishma spoke, his disciple's mind began to grasp the intricate web of relationships between the soul, the mind, and the universe. He explained that the soul's apprehensions of form and shape are due to past desires, which in turn lead to actions and further desires, creating a never-ending cycle of existence. Of Ishmael likened this vast wheel of existence to a machine with the unmanifest, the understanding as its nave, and the manifest, the body with senses as its spokes. The soul presides over it all, propelled by the quality of rajas, passion. As oilmen press oilseeds in their machines, so too do the consequences born of ignorance grind against the universe. In this cycle of existence, creatures are drawn towards acts and desires, which become new causes for future lives. The effects do not enter into causes, nor do causes enter into effects. Instead, time is the great cause that brings all things into being. As Bhishma's words reached their conclusion, his disciple's eyes shone with a newfound understanding of the mysteries of existence. He realized that the soul, though touched by inclinations and propensities, remains forever separate from them. Like the wind untainted by the dust, it carries with this profound insight The divine Rishi solved the doubt that had taken possession of his disciples' mind, though many people still rely on acts and scriptural rites to attain happiness, and the sun was setting over the kingdom, casting a warm orange glow over the bustling streets. Bhishma, the revered grandfather of the Pandavas, sat on his throne-like seat. Surrounded by the wise men of the land, he began to speak in a gentle tone. My dear friends, I have often observed that those who are devoted to the practice of acts hold them in high esteem. But those who are dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge see nothing else but the truth. Bhishma's eyes twinkled with wisdom as he continued, it is indeed rare to find individuals who are fully conversant with the Vedas and rely solely on their teachings. Those who possess great intelligence often prefer the path of abstention from acts, for it leads them closer to heaven and ultimately emancipation. As he spoke, a young prince named Yudhishthira approached Bhishma, eager to learn from his wise grandfather. O revered grandfather, Yudhishthira said, I have many doubts regarding the path of abstention from acts. What faults are abandoned by those who desire emancipation? Which ones are weakened, and which ones recur repeatedly? Bhishma smiled kindly at Yudhishthira's curiosity and began to explain. A person with a pure soul, through the process of self-reflection, can extract all their faults by their roots. Like an axe that cuts the steel chain, but breaks itself in the process, a cleansed soul destroys all the flaws born from darkness and ignorance, ultimately attaining emancipation. As Bhishma spoke, his words wove a tapestry of wisdom, revealing the intricate relationships between the attributes of goodness, passion, and darkness. He explained how these attributes influence every aspect of life, from contentment to cruelty, and how they can be either beneficial or detrimental. The wise men of the land listened intently as Bhishma continued. Those who possess faith and scriptural knowledge and are observant of the attribute of goodness attend only to good things and become endued with moral beauty. They are free from every taint and live a life of tranquility. As the evening wore on, the assembly dissolved into thoughtful silence, each member lost in their own reflections on the path to emancipation. The stars began to twinkle in the night sky, and Bhishma's words hung in the air like a gentle breeze, carrying with them the promise of wisdom and liberation. In the midst of a vast and ancient forest, Bhishma sat in contemplation, his eyes gazing into the depths of the soul. He began to speak, his words like a gentle breeze that rustled the leaves of understanding. From the attribute of passion arises delusion. He said, a loss of judgment that clouds the mind like a dark, stormy sky, and from this delusion, O bull of Bharata's race, arise wrath and cupidity and fear and pride. These are the forces that bind us to the wheel of birth and death. As Bhishma spoke, his words wove a tapestry of insight into the nature of the soul. When all these passions are destroyed, he said, one becomes pure by obtaining purity. A person succeeds in arriving at the knowledge of the Supreme Soul, which is resplendent with effulgence, incapable of deterioration, without change, pervading all things. Bhishma's words painted a vivid picture of the soul's journey through the cycles of birth and death invested in his Maya. He said, men fall away from knowledge and become senseless, and in consequence of their knowledge being darkened, yield to wrath. Then from this wrath all manner of vices sprang forth: desire, cupidity, delusion, vanity, pride, and selfishness. These vices, like a tangled web, ensnared the soul in its many forms. From such selfishness proceeds various kinds of acts, Bhishma said, and from those acts spring diverse bonds of affection. But these bonds, like fragile threads, were easily snapped, leading to sorrow and misery, and so the cycle continued: birth and death, rebirth and suffering. Yet in the midst of this turmoil, Bhishma saw a glimmer of hope. The chit soul seeks to escape those evils, he said, and it is in this pursuit that women play a crucial role. Bhishma's words were like a subtle breeze that rustled the leaves of understanding. Women, he said, are like instruments that set the stream of creation a-going. They are kshetra, the field of consciousness, and men are kshetrajna, the knower of that field. But Bhishma warned against the dangers of attachment to women. Indeed, women are like frightful mantra powers. He said, they stupefy persons reft of wisdom, and so one must be cautious in their dealings with women, lest they fall prey to the passions of desire and attachment. As Bhishma continued to speak, his words wove a complex tapestry of insight into the nature of the soul. He spoke of the fivefold breaths, that sustain the body of the senses, that awaken and are generated by past thoughts and attachments, and he spoke of the ultimate goal it meant.
The venerable Bhishma sat before King Parikshit, his eyes shining with wisdom. I shall now share with you the secrets of conquering the senses. He said, a person who attains to this knowledge and lives accordingly will reach the highest. And Bhishma began by explaining that among all living creatures man is considered the most superior within humanity. Those who are regenerate, having transcended their worldly desires, hold a special place and among these regenerate individuals. Those who have studied the Vedas are revered as omniscient, and all-seeing. These Brahmanas, Bhishma continued, have become conversant with Brahma itself. They are like blind men guided by knowledge, whereas one without it stumbles through life's journey encountering many obstacles. The king listened intently as Bhishma described the qualities of righteous individuals, those who practice purity of speech, body, and mind, forgiveness, truth, and steadiness, and intelligence. These virtuous persons are observant of both worldly duties and spiritual practices, the most excellent path. Bhishma declared his Brahmacharya, a state of being free from attachment to the five vital breaths. The mind, understanding, senses, and actions is a state that transcends all perceptions, existing only in the realm of the mind. To attain this state, one must first subdue the quality of passion, which arises from desire. This involves avoiding contact with women, not casting eyes upon them, and practicing self-control. Bhishma then explained the workings of the human body, describing the ducts that carry vital juices to nourish it. He likened these ducts to rivers flowing into a vast scene, illustrating how they sustain life. The great Rishaya tribe revealed the secrets of the generation of vital seed, which arises from food, imagination, and desire. Those who understand this process are said to be men of restrained passions, their sins burned away by knowledge. They escape rebirth, for their minds have become freed from desire eternal and luminous. Bhishma concluded his discourse by emphasizing the importance of living a sinless life, transcending the bonds of body and senses like a traveler crossing an obstacle-filled path. Through this knowledge, he said, one can taste the nectar of emancipation. In a serene, forest-glade, Bhishma sat in contemplative silence, his eyes gazing out at the world beyond. He began to speak, his voice carrying on the gentle breeze like a soothing melody. Dear living beings, he said, you are all bound by attachments to the fleeting pleasures of the senses. But those who have transcended these worldly desires, attaining to the highest end, shine with an inner light that guides them through life's turmoil. As Bhishma spoke his words, wove a tapestry of wisdom, reminding us that our existence is fraught with suffering, birth, death, decay, sorrow, disease, and anxiety. Yet, he said, it is within our power to seek liberation from this cycle. To achieve this freedom, Bhishma continued, one must cultivate purity in thought, word, and deed. One should renounce pride, lead a simple life of mendicancy, and pursue happiness without attachment to worldly objects. Bhishma's words were like a gentle rain shower, nourishing the parched earth of our souls. He spoke of compassion, reminding us that it is a double-edged sword. While it brings us closer to others, it can also entangle us in their suffering. Whatever good or evil we do, Bhishma said, we reap its consequences. Therefore, let us strive for actions that are pure and just, practicing self-restraint in body, speech, and mind. As the sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow over the forest, Bhishma's words took on a deeper significance. He spoke of the importance of cultivating detachment, of letting go of our attachments to worldly things. The one who has transcended desire, he said, who lives in solitude, content with simple fare, and devoted to spiritual practices, that person has attained to Brahma, the ultimate reality. Bhishma's words were like a gentle stream flowing effortlessly through the landscape of our minds. He spoke of the importance of controlling our senses, of withdrawing them from their worldly attachments, and of cultivating a deep understanding of the self through persistent effort. He said, we can attain to Brahma, which is eternal, deathless, immutable, and undeteriorating. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Bhishma's words faded into silence, leaving behind a sense of peace and tranquility. His message was clear, that we have within us the power to transcend our suffering, to attain to Brahma, and to find eternal freedom from the cycle of birth and death.
In the midst of a serene, forced Bhishma sat in contemplative silence, his eyes gazing deep within. He began to speak, his words dripping with wisdom as he shared the secrets of the Yujin's path, the Yujin who seeks to walk the path of sinless Brahmacharya. Bhishma said, must first understand the nature of sleep and dreams, for in dreams are embodied. Soul is influenced by the attributes of passion and darkness, and we become possessed by desires that are not truly ours. Bhishma's words hung in the air like a gentle breeze on a summer day as he continued to speak about the Yujin who seeks to remain awake. This Yujin devotes himself to knowledge, applying himself with dedication and persistence through this discipline. He remains alert and aware, untouched by the slumber that besets us. All a young seeker eager for understanding approached Bhishma. Tell me, Revered One, the seeker asked, what is this state in which we think ourselves surrounded by objects and acts? Even when our senses are suspended, Bhishma smiled, his eyes twinkling with knowledge. This question has puzzled many a sage, but it was once answered by the great master Hari himself. He explained that it is due to the creative power of the mind which weaves together impressions from countless lives past. As Bhishma spoke, a gentle breeze rustled through the leaves carrying the whispers of ancient wisdom. The mind, he continued, remains ever present even when our senses are asleep, and so in dreams we relive moments from our past influenced by the attributes of goodness, passion, or darkness that have shaped you. A silence fell over the group as Bhishma's words hung in the air, a reminder of the mysteries that lie beyond the veil of waking consciousness. The Yujin who has transcended darkness and ignorance, Bhishma said, finally becomes one with Supreme Brahma, the cause of the universe. This is the ultimate goal of our journey, to attain pure knowledge, which shines like a beacon in the darkness as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the forest in a warm golden light. Bhishma's words came to an end. The seekers sat in contemplative silence, their minds reflecting on the wisdom shared by the Venerable Bhishma. The Venerable Bhishma sat in deep contemplation, his eyes gazing into the vast expanse of time. He began to speak, his voice like a gentle breeze on a summer's day. To truly know Brahma, he said, one must comprehend four essential topics. The first is the realm of dreams, where the veil between reality and illusion is thin. Then there is the state of dreamless slumber, where the mind is still and quiet. Next, we have Brahma, as indicated by attributes, the qualities that make up the universe. And finally, there is Brahma, transcending all attributes, the unmanifest eternal essence that underlies all existence. Sees Bhishma spoke, his words wove a tapestry of meaning that was both profound and accessible. The manifest world, he continued, is subject to birth and death, but the unmanifest, the chit soul, transcends these cycles. The great Rishi Narayana has described this duality as Tattvam, the ultimate reality. Vishnu's words painted a picture of the universe in all its complexity. He spoke of Pravritti, the path of action and rebirth, where individuals are bound by their karma, and he spoke of Nivritti, the path of renunciation and liberation, where one seeks to transcend the cycles of birth and death. A young seeker sat at Bhishma's feet, listening with rapt attention. He asked, how can I attain this highest end? Bhishma smiled and replied, to begin, you must understand the nature of Prakriti and Purusha, the creative force and the unchaining essence that underlies all existence. Both are eternal, indestructible, and beyond human comprehension. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the landscape, Bhishma continued his teachings. He spoke of yoga, the practice of union with the divine, where one cultivates knowledge, discipline, and detachment. Yoga is not just a physical or mental exercise, he said. It is a way of life that leads to liberation from the cycles of birth and death. The young seeker's eyes shone with understanding as Bhishma spoke of the various forms of Brahma worship. Some adored him in images, while others sought to realize his true nature through meditation and devotion. Bhishma cautioned one must not be content with mere rituals or external practices. The true path lies within, in the stillness of the mind and the depths of one's heart. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Bhishma concluded his teachings. The young seeker felt a sense of awe and reverence for the mysteries that lay beyond human comprehension. He knew that he had only scratched the surface of the truth, but he was determined to continue on the path of self-discovery and spiritual growth in the silence. In the court of King Yudhishthira, a wise and just ruler, there was a query about Janaka, the king of Mithra, who had achieved ultimate liberation or emancipation, the question was how he succeeded in attaining this state after renouncing worldly pleasures. Bhishma, the revered sage and charioteer of the Pandavas, replied that he would narrate an ancient tale about Janaka's path to enlightenment. This story began with a king named Janadeva, who was a descendant of Janaka and ruled Mithila. He was surrounded by a century of preceptors who taught him various courses of conduct, but despite their efforts, the young king remained dissatisfied. Janadeva was particularly drawn to understanding the nature of the soul and the ultimate reality beyond worldly existence. He studied the Vedas and sought guidance from his instructors, but their explanation